it's been a long time for Palafox because I remember since I always had this like bias against him initially because he would grief me in solo queue so many times. Like every single time he was on my team, he would just run it down mercilessly.
Yeah.
I would see their jungler sitting mid, ping him back, and he would just go in and die 10 times. And I'm just like, this guy's free loss. Like, I cannot win with him on my team.
He's got to ride that line, you know?
Yeah, he was way past the line. I don't know what limit he was testing. The ban detection, perhaps.
I've never been on a show with a mic like this. This is so
Really?
exciting, yeah. I feel like I can do that thing where you like fidget with it and you're just constantly like, okay, so this is what I really think about this topic, you know?
Welcome back to the Cloud9 Kia Forecast, episode 19. I'm Meteos, and joining me, we have a special guest.
Hello, it's Kangas.
Yeah, you want to introduce yourself for people who might not know you yet?
Yeah, sure. So a lot of people are getting to know me this year, especially because it's my first time on the LTA broadcast full time. So shout out to the OGs that remember Sir Buttkick back when I used to be called that when I was casting like tier 3 and collegiate stuff. But I developed through like the NACL system, tier 2 over the last couple of years, and now it's been fun being on the LTA broadcast for the past year. And you know, it's crazy ride thinking back of like I got into esports at a very different time than a lot of the people around me in the studio. I'm definitely like the youngest one. I'm 29, so not like that young, but I'm definitely the youngest one on like the broadcast team. And I feel that often because they're always talking about these stories from like 2014, 2013. And I'm like, I didn't even play League back then. So yeah, it's funny.
Really?
I feel like I'm like a completely different generation, but we made it. We got there.
Yeah, that's cool. I'd be interested to hear about your journey a little bit. You know, what led you here? You mentioned you weren't even playing back in like so where did you come from? Like what were you doing back in the early league days?
So early league days, I knew what it was because I just saw like the IGN Pro Leagues and like those old school tournaments, stuff like that, hearing about the big prize pools. But I was a Nintendo guy growing up, so I only played Nintendo consoles. If it wasn't a Nintendo console, I just didn't know what the games were. Like I missed out on StarCraft, missed out on a lot of the fighting games, things like that. But then in college, freshman year, I had a roommate who played League, and so then they got me into it. And then I feel like a lot of people had this experience. The moment you start playing, you're like, okay, this is now my game. Like you just get addicted to it immediately. And then it just kind of took over my life. And a couple years after that, I was in like the Esports club at my college, and we were doing this college tournament with other schools in Minnesota, and they were like, hey, we need somebody to like broadcast the games. And at the time, me and my roommate would like mute the LCS games and for fun pretend like we were casters. So I was like, you know what? I've done that before. Like, let's give it a shot. And it was a lot of fun. I really loved doing it. And then that just kind of scaled. I just kept doing it. And since I was in college, I was able to get my foot in the collegiate door with Riot, doing some collegiate shows with them. That's how they first heard about me. Then I did stuff with like Optic Gaming back when teams were doing their own academy streams. And then that then got me into like the tier 2 academy casting, and then that's been about like 4 years doing that. And then this year again, first year full time on the broadcast. So again, like a very different generation, right? Because like everybody else that's on the broadcast team has either been like pro players like Kobe or Jat that were, you know, playing in the early days, or people like Azale that came in very early in when like the LCS was established. I got to watch those guys kind of create the scene, establish the scene, build it, and then now I get to work with those guys, which is really fun.
Hell yeah. I mean, congrats on making it to the LCS, by the way.
Thank you.
I know you've been working a while for that, so that's awesome to see. You said you started in freshman year of college?
Yep.
What year was that?
That was 2014.
Okay.
Yeah.
So still like fairly early.
Well, okay, but I guess technically, so I started 2015 playing the game.
Okay.
My roommate wanted me to play in 2014. I didn't do it. So I have never played on the old map.
Really?
2015 is when the new map was introduced, and I've only ever played on like the modern new updated map. I guess it's been updated like since then, adding a bunch of stuff, but I never played on like the old janky pine trees everywhere stuff.
Yeah, it's actually crazy because I swear time just moves differently with League. It's like
that was 10 years ago. Like that's crazy, right?
It's been that map for the vast majority of the time the game's been around, but it's like if you show people early clips from League, it still feels like, you know, very familiar in a way, even though it's so long ago at this point.
I've seen highlight clips of like the crazy pop-off moments, like the Xpeke backdoor, like on the old map, like of those iconic esport moments, but never experienced it myself. But I know a lot of people say this, but it should come back as a rotating game mode. You know how we have like AR
like
Earth and stuff like that?
League?
We should have Classic League, just like have that come back for one patch. I feel like that'd be a hit.
I think it would be cool. I'd be down for that.
It would bring back all the old school players.
There was some private server thing, like I don't remember what it was called, but there was some version of Classic League, but then Riot like gave him a cease and desist.
It was like a bootleg version of it?
Yeah. It was. I don't think Riot liked it.
It probably ran better than the current client. That's the problem, yeah.
Not a high bar.
Sorry, Riot.
Yeah, it's all good. That would be cool, though. It'd be fun. Cool. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if people ask me that a decent amount. It's like, what was your favorite season of League and whatnot? And I don't know, like, there was a lot of bad stuff back in the day.
That's what everyone tells me. Like, what time would you do if we did bring back that game mode? Would it be like patch 1 or would it be the patch right before the update? Because there was a lot of BS that was happening back in the day. I've heard stories of things like Evelyn being permanent invisible with 6 Sunfire capes and you can't stop her.
Okay, that one specifically was always like a troll build.
Okay.
It's funny because like I know a lot of people always like reminiscing about the old days of League, and it is kind of fun to be like, hey, you remember like this thing? But as someone I've played since the beta, right? Like I've seen every single version of the game. A lot of the stuff people bring up, I'm like, okay, that's super exaggerated, or like that was never a real thing. Like the Evelyn thing, it was never good. It was something that's like you could do it, but like it was like if someone stood next to you for like a solid minute and somehow didn't realize the 6 Sunfire Evelyn was on top of them, they might eventually die. But
that sounds very funny though. Like I have to say.
It was a good time for sure.
What do you think were like the most OP things that you remember from that period though on the old map?
Ooh, the old map. I mean, the one that is not exaggerated was like the old Poppy was really, really dumb.
Old, right?
Yeah, that one was like you'd build. I always thought the best was like going full AP. I would play that a decent amount where you'd like go Lichbane, Deathfire Grasp, and you would just like ult charge someone and Deathfire Q them, and it would just literally one shot them while you're immune to everything.
Nice.
So yeah, I mean, there's been some crazy stuff over the years for sure.
The most broken thing I think I've experienced was I'm pretty sure this was season 5 on the new map. Maybe it was season 6, but it was whatever the jungle item was that like. It was basically Gwynsu's on the jungle item. Do you remember what I'm talking about? I forget the name of it.
Yeah, well, there was Feral Flare, which was one of them. There was like Sated Devourer.
I think that's the one that I remember. I was too early and new at the game to fully understand. I just remember Master Yi's walking up and killing me with like 3 autos in a queue and being like, okay, well,
yeah,
that's fun. And my friends that played the game longer would complain about it a lot. So that's probably like the thing that I hear people complain about the most from like that actually knew the game at that time. But other than that, I feel like there's been annoying things, but I don't think anything fully blatantly broken in like the recent years. I feel like the balance team does a good enough job of not having the game fully like devolve. There's obviously gonna be stuff that's overtuned, but props where it's
I feel like I would have to like sit down and look at. I think the first place I would look if I was trying to like reminisce on the most OP things is just like champion releases, because there have been some really disgusting champion releases.
Mel on release was actually that was crazy.
Like Zoe, I think was like actually the most obnoxious thing ever. Yeah. Anyway, I mean, yeah, I could talk about that forever.
I love talking with people though that played back in the day, because I feel like I always learn so much from you. Because like again, I missed out on this whole generation, but it's a beautiful thing about League of Legends is that the community, there's all these different parts of the community that have started playing at different times. But like I feel like the people that have stuck with the game for this long, like there's something special about the game. If you're gonna play this for like a decade, over a decade, almost 2 now at this point. We're closer to 2 decades.
It was like I started in, I think it was my junior year of high school, or maybe a little before then, which would be, what was it, juniors 11? So I'd be like 16.
Okay,
and I'm 31 now.
31.
So,
15
yeah,
years.
Like pretty much half my life I've been playing League.
Did you see? I don't remember who it was, but did you see that there's like an LJL player? Or sorry, not LJL. The what's the developmental league for LPL?
Oh, I don't know the acronym.
I forget the acronym. But for LPL Tier 2, there was like a player that was born after the game was released. And I was like, what?
That'll make you feel old.
That's crazy.
That'll make you feel real old.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that it was a Tier 2 LPL player. Or at least I just saw a tweet of like a player now on a team signed. It was born after the game. I was like, that's wild to think about. But we're getting to that generation now.
I wonder how it's going to work with like these new up and coming players, because for the longest time there's always been this narrative of like, you know, the young players are like the prodigies and whatnot, and everyone's like looking at like the next like 15, 16-year-old. But I feel like a lot of those kids were kind of playing League for their whole lives, right? Like since they could play, like since they were 5 or whatever. But if you're born after the game came out, then that's years that the game's been around that you haven't been able to play it. So I don't know. Maybe they don't have the same advantage.
Maybe. Hey, look, Sniper just got knocked out of playoffs. I
True.
mean, the next generation's already struggling.
Yeah. I mean, that game was crazy.
LDL. There we go. Okay. Yeah. LGA. I was thinking that's a Japanese one. Yeah. Early. It might still be called that. Now I know that's LCP, that it kind of absorbed all of that.
Well, you know, there were some good series this weekend. We can jump into the LTLA games. It still feels weird calling it LTA instead of LCS. It's like I don't know if I'll ever adjust.
Just call it the North. Yeah, we're the North.
The Great North. So, I mean, there was the one that just happened. There were Shopify versus 100 Thieves. I think nobody would have predicted that.
Yeah.
Sanely, at least.
Game 1, it was exactly how I predicted it to go. I thought we were going to get 4 more of that, and then Shopify just turned it on. That was crazy.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I would definitely, I remember on the dive we were doing predictions, and at first I was saying I think this is one of the hardest series to predict, just because even when you watch the games, it's like, you know, when you watch FlyQuest or C9 or even some of the lower tier teams, it's like you can kind of predict what's going to happen, right? Mm-hmm. Like you'll have some ideas, you know, okay, they've got an advantage, they're going to snowball it. But with both of these teams, they're so prone to throwing that it's just like, wow, I don't know who's going to win till the game is legitimately over. So predicting it, I'm like going through the lanes thinking like, all right, you know, 100 Thieves probably stronger in most roles except top individually.
Yeah, Fudge has had a really good split.
Yeah, Fudge definitely. I think he probably should have made All-Pro.
I had him as my third. Actually, I'm pretty positive I had him as my third team All-Pro. I don't remember it offhand. I know I didn't have Impact. I'm very surprised Impact made. I think it's just name and like brand value.
Yeah, I think I actually did put Impact, but mostly just because
you were the problem.
Well, yeah, me and 19 other people. Yeah, but it was just like, who do you put? It was like obviously Thanatos and Whippo are clear top 2, and then after that, if
it's not
because Fudge has had some good performances since the voting too, but he did start off the beginning of this split really bad, like really, really bad. So I don't know. It was really close between him and Impact, but it's just like, I don't know.
Yeah,
Impact's had a pretty bad split, but it's still hard for me to sleep on him when like
we know what he's capable of.
Yeah, and I mean like the whole team has looked pretty dysfunctional so far, right? So I went with Impact, but if I could redo it, I'd probably go for Fudge because he's done really well, and I think it is. I think it's nice for the players on the lower teams to get like, you know, a spot on the All Pro because, you know, they're not getting a whole lot else.
Yeah. But it's a nod. It's something to talk about then. And so I agree that Fudge would be the person I'd favor over Sniper for sure going into that series. But I definitely thought 100 Thieves would do better when it came to the team fights. Like Shopify was actually just out team fighting 100 Thieves a lot of the times in that series. And that was something I really didn't think was going to be the way Shopify won that series if they were. I thought it was going to be like, oh, Contracts will do these fun invades and like get really ahead of the jungle and then snowball a lane and then they like take over maybe through like Fudge playing the side lane split push or something like that. And I mean, he did get the Yorick game. Like that was pretty cool. But other than that, it's like, no, they actually did just kind of pound for pound take them.
Yeah. I mean, 100 Thieves is, they've looked kind of like a mess this split because, you know, they came first in split 1, but split 1 was also like 2 weeks long.
Yeah,
it was
short.
like a, you know, debatably a real split or not. Right, would tell you it is.
It was a for fun, you know.
Yeah, I don't know if everyone else would agree, but you know, they did come in first there. They didn't do so great in playoffs, and then this split has been like really up and down for them.
Yeah,
like people calling them frauds, them being like, no, we're not frauds, but then it ultimately looking a bit fraudulent.
And that
today.
was the narrative last split too, was everyone calling them frauds. And I definitely took a reputation hit by how hard I backed 100 Thieves at the beginning of this split. I really thought that FBI, he was having a lot of pop-off performances, and I felt that he was at the tier of Jan in his ability to just like solo carry games for 100 Thieves. That I just felt that, okay, 100 Thieves, if they keep scaling and they're able to at least maintain this form, if they get a little better, they should be like the best team in the league. I actually had a lot of faith in their ability to keep improving, and they just weren't able to get that. So I actually had them power ranked number 1 coming into the split, and that did not pay off.
Damn, they let you down.
I know.
It was definitely it was possible. I don't know. They were a team that seemed like they could be really good.
They had a spark to them. You wanted to believe.
They pulled off stuff that other teams probably couldn't. Like a lot of but I think it came at a cost where I think for me, the biggest thing that made me feel like they had something to prove was the fact that every team said they were frauds. I think usually you can learn the most about how good a team is by like what other teams say about them. Because, if you ask like the coaches or the players of certain teams, people will always answer in a certain way, but people rarely will just outright lie about another team. And so when you hear like, 100 Thieves, like they're not legit because if they're just trolling their scrims all the time, if they're winning through like weird things or they're just not doing something right. And the thing that always would tilt me when I watch their games is they have one play, which is just run toward the fight. Anytime somebody's caught on 100 Thieves, everyone will TP in if they have it or just sprint toward the fight, and they'll never make the other team pay the price for overgrouping, right? It's like, there was even that example, I think was it game 1 or game 2 where Sniper was on Gwen? But
I'm not remembering right now either.
Yeah, I mean, it was one of those games, but I just remember that Shopify was doing this like really wild, like, it wasn't even a real macro play. There was like no wave. They were like walking behind the tier 1 turret bottom for Sniper, and like Sniper had flash. So he very easily could have just flashed out, been in 0 harm, and then 100 Thieves just like runs the map from there. But instead, he's like egoing on them, gets Nautilus hooked like behind a minion, and then like flashes late, dies to a Senna ult, and then all of 100 Thieves run down toward it as well, and they just end up losing out. And I'm just like, dude, this team refuses to give anything up. Like they'll just fight everything, which I mean, it's not like you don't want to fight when you can, but if the other team is giving you stuff for free, like uncontested towers, waves, whatever, like you don't just give that up to run at them for fun. Yeah. So
there's multiple ways to get gold in League of Legends. And I mean, that's even, I don't know, what comes to mind for me is the Inspired, his quote where when they lost in split 1 to 100 Thieves, he was like, yeah, Sniper just showed up on Jax. And we were like, why the hell is it Jax? He just jumps over the wall, stuns me, and then we lose the fight. I'm like, he shouldn't have been there. Like, but and that's sometimes their strength, right? Like 100 Thieves will do stuff you're not expecting, but once you expect it, the facade kind of goes away. It's like, okay, well, now we know that they're just always going to perma fight. So if we just set up better, set up more respectfully, get our vision down, like we'll be able to spot their flanks and punish them for it.
Exactly, and they'll just they have a way of getting caught a lot too. It seems like they're one of the teams that I feel like gets blindsided by where the other team is more than anyone else. Like, I think most of the time in a pro game, you kind of have an idea of where the other team can be based on like, when they got out of the map, you see where certain people are, what objectives coming up, they're going to be going for vision. So like, if they're camping in a bush, if you don't know exactly which bush, you should at least know like they could be in these bushes, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of rare that someone will be in a spot and you thought there was no way they could have gotten there unless, they do something really clever or whatever. But 100 Thieves feels like they get blindsided a lot by that. Like they'll just full face check a bush that like the other team's in or something like that. So yeah, I don't know. Something about just the way that they operated this year just seemed like they were missing out on, I don't know what you want to call it, like macro or something like that.
I don't know like definitively if this is true for every game, but having talked with the players, sometimes they give a lot of credit to FBI for being an in-game leader, which as an AD carry being an in-game leader, I wouldn't be surprised if some of it is like setting up the big picture plays, but he's not going to be micromanaging like how to approach the fight and like, oh, check this brush, because he's probably paying attention to pushing the wave or like hitting the CS and like doing other things that an AD carry is doing. So I can imagine that it comes down to, give the call and then, okay, we know what the objective is, but what's the micro movement to get to that objective in a safe manner then needs to be taught still. So, yeah, I agree. The Golden Glue's still got a lot to get into these guys' heads.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. And then there's also I think River was saying that he's going to go military after this year.
Yeah, that was something that Sniper had talked about at the interview Split 1. He dropped that one, and we never got full confirmation, but then River did have an interview recently. I think it was with Name Men, or it might have been with us. Either way, he did say, like, high probability that this is his last split this summer. So that would be a big bummer.
Oh, so next split would be his last? So this is his last year?
Yeah. Okay. So at the end of this year, he would have to go for military service. It's not confirmed, but it's very high likelihood that is happening. So
yeah, I think, probably unless something crazy happens, it's pretty likely to be his last year, which is
hard
sad
to get the exemptions.
Yeah, I mean, some people come back afterwards.
True.
But
yeah, you never know, but that would be a long time off. And he's been in NA for a while now. I mean, he was back on like Golden Guardians. I remember that big trade happening. That being exciting. Well, he was Dignitas before that, right? Didn't he go from like Dig, then get traded to Golden Guardians?
I don't remember where he started out. I remember him in Golden Guardians. He might have been on Dig beforehand. I'm not
think
sure.
That was like a big trade that happened. That might have been when Dig got Santorin. I'm trying to remember like the whole timeline. I feel like there's a whole period in League Pro Esports that is fuzzy in my brain because first off, I was working Tier 2 and we had 16 teams to pay attention to at that time. And also there was a lot of moves happening in Tier 1 to keep track of.
Yeah, I mean, dude, I don't think anybody could tell you every single move that's happened. It's maybe Blabber. I feel like he has a really good memory for that kind of stuff.
Some people have really good memory. Like Emily Rand on the broadcast, I am shocked by how good her memory is for just like anything. I'm like, hey, this year, who was this like KT Rolster player? She was like, oh, I know. Like, cool.
Yeah, she's really good too. Yeah, but obviously pretty big. I guess you'd call it an upset with Shopify winning, even though I guess technically they were 4th seed, 100 Thieves was 5th seed. But like, I don't think anyone was predicting it, and definitely not in the manner they won, where like Game 1 looked like it was going to be a 100 Thieves win. Like, Contracts was hard feeding on Xin Zhao. But I don't know, just the way they won. Like, Palafox was just having some insane team fights with Rise. And, they just somehow managed to bring that one back.
Closes out the series with the pentakill also. Like, I think Palafox's resurgence as a player has been very exciting to see because Shopify Rebellion going into the year, the way I kind of described them was this team, if every player is playing at their peak, they should be one of the best teams, if not the best team in the league. Like, if you take Prime Fudge, Prime Palafox and Contracts when they were like crushing it on CLG Energy, Prime B-Boy, he got first team All-Pro 80 carry one split, Seos, the GOAT of Brazil, right? Like, if you take all these guys at their peak, that's a scary team. But they just weren't able to get it together. And now I think we're starting to see some hints of that. I know it's 100 Thieves. It's not like a Cloud9 or a FlyQuest, like that type of win. But I think we're starting to see some of that potential come through of like, I mean, they are like good players. Like if they hit, they hit really hard.
Yeah, I'm actually happy to see Palafox do well because it's honestly been a while. Yeah. It's been a long time for Palafox because I remember since I always had this like bias against him initially because he would grief me in solo queue so many times. Like every single time he was on my team, he would just run it down mercilessly. Yeah. I would see their jungler sitting mid, ping him back, and he would just go in and die 10 times. And I'm just like, this guy's free loss. Like I cannot win with him on my team.
He's got to ride that line,
Yeah, he was way past the line. I don't know what limit he was testing. The ban detection, perhaps, but
see if it still works.
So I initially had a bias against him because he griefed a lot of solo games I was in. But then, he did really, really well with Energy, CLG. And so, like, when they won the split, I was like, wow. And he was playing really well during it, too. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, okay.
And then there's the whole Xiaohu quote about, like, oh, he's a genius midfielder.
Yeah, he's like a genius midfielder. They beat G2. It was like his stocks were way up. And so, like, that was cool. Just seeing like a native NA player rise to the ranks like that. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, that's super rare.
It's rare.
And then, he had his fall off kind of, which I think everyone has ups and downs in their career. I think in League, I think people usually will like exaggerate, like if a player has a good week, people are just so quick to forget past performances and only remember like your most recent week or whatnot. And so it's like as soon as you have like one bad game, people are saying, oh, like he's done, he's washed, he'll never be good again. And Palafox was kind of slumping for a while. It was like there was it was like a year and a half or something at this point. It's been a while.
Yeah. Last year on Energy did not look good. And I know that like part of when he looked really good on CLG and towards the tail end of that Energy taking over and then like that Worlds run they had, they still had the coaching staff, which if you remember was like, what, 8 coaches? Like it was a crazy coaching staff. I know we've had like all these memes of them all up on stage after they won. But then Energy dropped like almost all the coaches. I think they're down to like 1 or 2 coaches.
Yeah.
And I think that we really saw that Palafox is the type of player that excels when he has some kind of like positive like reinforcement or like coaching loop of information. Because now that DeMonte's back on Shopify working with him again, he's starting to look better. So maybe DeMonte is the secret for the Palafox.
I think DeMonte has, you know, he has a pretty good record at this point.
Yeah.
It's like almost every team he joins as a coach just immediately starts performing better.
Mm-hmm.
And people say, you know, he's like the vibes guy. And, you know, I'm friends with him. I've hung out with him. I believe it. He's good vibes. So it's cool to see like all the teams he's joining just start doing better. I could totally see it. But yeah, I feel like this week was the first time in a while we've got like an actual pop-up Palafox performance.
Yep.
I mean, obviously his Annie game wasn't a pop-up performance, but I swear nobody looks good on Annie.
No.
Like it's me and Sneaky always talk about how it's like the Nautilus of mid lane, where it's just a champion that when you feed on it, and it's likely you're going to feed on it, and you just look like an actual bot. Like, there's no way to not look like a noob when you're playing Annie. It's just how the champion works. Like, you're just going to feed, and you're going to look useless.
But also, you're going to flash Tibbers in the last team fight and probably hit the carry, and then it doesn't really matter anyway, right? You know, Nautilus, press R. Hey, I did my job. Same thing.
Yeah. So, yeah, you know, he kind of ran down that game, but I think ending the series with a pentakill on Victor was pretty sick, and like a chaos storm taking up the entire lane.
Yep.
Yeah, you know, that was sick. Yeah, big win for Shopify.
Yeah, I mean 3-0, like you said, unexpected, but good for them. I think again they're hitting their stride at the right time. Fudge is consistently performing. Palafox is now having pop-off performances, and I think if Contracts has a mid-top that are holding their own, he's going to look so much better as well. So yeah,
100%. Then the other series we had was TL versus Dig, where, you know, Dig still not managing to get their top half finish. It was, well, there was that graphic on the show that was like, since Scar was on the team, or just some ridiculously long streak.
The last time they beat TL in a series,
Well, there was that one, which was like 2017, but there was also just like Dig finishing in the top half of the standings.
Oh, yeah, that
was
one.
like ridiculously long time.
It was a long time.
Like actually forever.
And also it had been like a really long time since TL had finished below 4th. So that was like a fun narrative. It was like, if Dig wins this, it's 2 streaks that are kind of broken here. They were not able to to win it.
No, they weren't. Yeah. It was I mean, Dig did get the 1 win, but it looked like TL was kind of back. I mean, Jan was popping off. Like his Callista game was like, you could tell he was pissed. Like, he does not like the situation he's in.
That Callista, man, talk about playing the line. Like, I know Palafox likes to play the line. Jan was playing the line on that Callista. He was melee range of a Skarner, just saying bet. Like, I know you have ult, but like, you gotta hit it.
Yeah.
And that was incredible.
Yeah. He had a really good series. And then we had Yuji in for TL as well.
All 4 games.
Yep.
Yeah. We were lied to by Spawn last weekend. He said that they play Yuji for 2, then they put Umpty in. Apparently that was only last weekend's plan. Inspired even said that in scrims they were doing that going into last weekend. So we had 2 sources. We were like so confident on stage. Like, oh yeah. So Yuji played the first 2. They lost the second game. Probably time to put Umpty in. Yuji in for game 3. Yuji in for game 4. So now it's kind of up in the air to see like what is the strategy from Team Liquid going forward, and how are they going to utilize Umpty on this like 6-man roster, because they really were communicating that they plan to play both players.
Yeah, I think to some degree teams are always going to give like a pretty PR answer.
Sure.
Nobody's going to be like, yeah, you know, we're keeping Umpty around in case Yuji's a flop, like in case he chokes, in case he hard chokes, we got a backup.
So you think it's
like,
protecting the player mostly?
Yeah, and I mean, you don't want to look like a org that doesn't know what they're doing. So I mean, I don't think that's kind of like consciously what they're doing, but if it was, they'd probably say something similar, right? It definitely seems like Yuji is the guy that they want to be playing with, and then Umpty is, someone that they had success with in the past with the team, but it seems like somewhere along the lines they kind of like lost faith in him or something like that, because he had quite a few games where he was like doing some crazy mistakes and whatnot, and that can be really hard with the team. Where even if, like, I think Umpty's a good player, obviously, like. I think a lot of times when people look at TL, they forget that like it was this TL roster that they had like won the split. They had some really crazy good series against like T1, right? Like
T1 was Zeus, last year they like pushed T1 multiple times in series.
Yeah, exactly. Like they were taking games off of T1, which is like NA rarely ever does that. So like you can't do that while being a bad team or player, right? So obviously Umpty's good, but he's had some massive like wild throw games as well. So it could just come down to the fact that like, maybe him and the team don't see the game the same way, or like they're losing trust in each other, which makes it hard to play. Obviously they were doing the like roster, like trying out people for mid and jungle coming into the split, which say what you want, but I feel like anytime a team's doing that, it's not a good look. And it's probably just like bad for the vibes overall in a team, because
it raises competitiveness with the players, because like all players are going to be competitive, right? Like they want their spot.
Yeah, it can raise like in team competitiveness, which I don't feel like is always good. Like people will debate on this topic, but I'm definitely on the side of like I would rather a team feel secure in their spots and like have trust in their teammates. Where if it's like, say you're the mid laner on a team and you have another mid laner competing for your spot, and your jungler's going for some like risky play where you could follow, and it's like maybe gonna screw you over really bad, but it might work. I think that if you're worried about your spot, you'd be hesitant. You're like, I don't want to go for this high risk play that could make me look terrible. I'd rather take like the safer thing and not look bad. But obviously, I feel like that's not what you want on a team. You want everyone to be like, the same page, like going together.
I never thought about it that way, actually. That's interesting. Because I feel like from a coach's perspective, the hope would be that they would be able to spot that, and then like if they're listening in on the comms and stuff, then be able to call out like, why didn't you follow up? But that doesn't mean that it changes the mentality of the player to be like, oh, I want to not go for the risky plays. I want to play safe and maybe play even more to like KDA, stuff like that.
Dude, that's been the thing since like franchising on teams, because it's like you don't have that same level of chemistry with your teams. It's more like coworkers and whatnot than like an actual team of like friends and whatnot. That was at least my experience coming from like the early C9 days, where it was like a lot of camaraderie, to like 100 Thieves days, where it was very much like clock in, clock out, like do as you're told or you get benched, which happened to me.
How much of like, because you were part of the legendary C9 roster that like just blew up the scene, or not blew up the scene, but like just made a splash as soon as you came into the scene and were just like the top team right away. How much of that success do you think was just, everyone getting along and kind of having this more friends first, or maybe not friends first, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but like how much of that was just due to the mental of the team and getting along?
I think that was a huge part of it. We definitely were friends. It was so different from how teams are nowadays. Like, I don't know if you'll ever have a team that's quite like that, where it was just like, it was a combination of a lot of things. Obviously we were really good at the game. We were all like super high rated in solo queue. We grinded the game all the time, but we're also good friends. We would like, hang out a lot outside of the game. We basically just, when you're on a team living in a gaming house, all your time is spent with each other. So if you don't like each other or you like don't want to be there, then it's going to be pretty rough, right? And I don't know, a lot of the time the winning team is just the team that puts in the most time and effort. So I think it's pretty important to have like good vibes and whatnot.
And I have to imagine, I've never been a pro player, right? Like I don't understand exactly what that environment's like, but I have to imagine that it's going to be easier to learn and to give feedback and to accept the feedback if you all get along and like each other's company, as opposed to like, oh, I have to work with this player. I have to be on this team because we all got signed, not having to say in each other's like positions and stuff. And now I have to get feedback from this guy on like what they think I should do in the game. And I have a different opinion on it. Like it's going to be harder to bridge that.
Oh, 100%. I mean, I have a lot of memories from like those days where anytime somebody was feeding or just having a terrible game, you would never feel bad about it. You would just be like, oh man, like you got me this game, like you got me, like I'm running it down, like you're gonna carry it, right? And you'd be like, yeah, don't worry, we got you. But now that's not the case. Now you're just like sitting there like fearing for your life, being like, oh man, like I don't want to be the guy that's like getting blamed for this loss. So
yeah, now Toma's yelling at Surdy like, why'd you path that way to join the team fight and get picked off twice in a row?
Yeah,
going back to kind of like the difference in the rosters, I kind of feel that a little bit with Dignitas, in that Surdy and Shaden came up together in Tier 2, so they had a lot of experience playing together. But then you have, Tomo and Isles played a lot together in the bot lane as well. Kaney's a bit of a wild card in the mid lane, playing a lot of time in the LLA before coming up here. But it's not like this natural synergy across the entire roster. It really does feel like in game that more often I see Shaden and Surdy being on the same page of kind of what they want to accomplish, Tomo and Isles being on a similar page, but then not everybody being on the same page. I think Team Liquid fully took advantage of that in the series. Like when you look at how Team Liquid was able to just completely dissect Surdy's map movements, there were multiple times in that series where they're like, okay, we're just going to wait in a brush because we know that Surdy's going to push a wave and then walk through this brush to hover mid, and we're just going to kill him.
Yeah.
And like they would just do that like multiple times, and it felt like they were just reading Dignitas's playbook like a book, and Dignitas are not experienced enough of a roster yet to be able to adapt on the fly in the game. So that was... I'm impressed that Dignitas at least got a game win, though. I think that was really cool that they were able to pull that off and give us our first Game 4 in Fearless Best of 5. Our only Game 4.
Only ever Game 4. Yeah. They showed some promise, I would say, as a team, but I mean, even if they did somehow magically beat Liquid, I wouldn't have seen them going much farther. I think this is just a team that I heard it described in a way that I kind of agreed with. It was like they're a team that feels like they kind of have a decent understanding of the game, as far as like they try to go for the right things, but just stuff goes wrong for them all the time.
Yeah.
And I think they're just, I don't know. I mean, I guess compared to other teams, they are fairly inexperienced in the sense of like, Shaden and Surdy are coming from solo queue mostly. Mm-hmm. Tomo has been around for a while, but he's never really been on like a top team that's like played internationally or whatever.
Subbing for 100 Thieves last year was probably like the most notable accomplishment, and he did great on that team, getting them to Worlds, but then at Worlds, a little rougher.
Yeah, exactly. So it can just be hard to know how to navigate all these situations, because in any given time for a league, there's like the thing you should be doing, but a lot of it comes down to like understanding what the other team's doing, what you should be doing, and then it's like a lot of it's like an information game. What do you know? What do you think they know about what you're doing? And then kind of like balancing those. So I feel like stuff would just always go wrong for them, or they just kind of like got hands checked in their lanes. Like I think Kaney had a pretty rough split when you look at all the like Tier 2 Korean imports. I think Kaney kind of had the roughest one out of everybody. So yeah, I mean, they showed promise. They didn't roll over. They weren't a DSG.
No,
but
they fought hard for it, and props to them. And I know that they were working hard on it as well. But yeah, at the end of the day, you can't have every team win, right? So
yeah, exactly.
Team Liquid's a tough team to beat, even when they are struggling a little bit. Like it was interesting that Spawn. I don't know if you caught the interview. I think it was after like Game 2 or Game 3. But Spawn, we did like a sideline interview with him, and he was saying. And this might be a little cope. I imagine there's some cope here, but he was like, "We're happy we got knocked into the lower bracket."
I did see that
because we're not like championship form right now, but now we get more practice.
I like Spawn. No flame toward him, but like he's very PR trained. It's like his interviews are like so PR that I feel like you have to kind of read between the lines.
I mean, he was a caster for a while too. So
yeah. I mean, he knows what to say, but it's just like when you're listening to it, you're like, okay, man, like, like you wanted to be knocked out, really?
More stage games, more practice for Eugene.
Yeah, I think most people would have wanted to win, but maybe. Yeah, and other news, have you been following the NACL with like near airport?
Yeah, they got knocked out.
Yep,
that was so long double lift, Po Belter. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, spring split doesn't matter. A wise man once said, but that was kind of crazy because I didn't watch the whole thing, but I was kind of like tuning in while it was going on, and I saw the end of Game 1, and it was a huge stomp. Like I think there's conviction they were playing against. I don't even know if they got a kill or something. Like they just got completely stomped.
Damn.
So I didn't watch the rest of the series because for whatever reason there was like a huge gap or like wait time between games, and I got distracted. But I assumed it would be like a 3-0 stomp.
Mm-hmm.
And then next thing I know, I checked the Reddit thread and it was like they lost 3-1. I'm like, wait, what?
It's crazy.
How does that happen? Like you completely stomp them game one and then just lose.
They also got pushed by Winthrop the week before, so they were already struggling a little bit. I know there was all like the memes in the Reddit post about like, oh, EDC instead of scrim, stuff like that. But like you said, spring split, whatever. But I think whether Near Airport was going to do well or not, I didn't care too much. I wasn't like invested in, Doublet's going to come in and smash tier 2, right? I was just excited that people would start watching more tier 2 games because it did have a noticeable impact on viewership whenever they were playing, which I think is, props to Double, props to the guys on that team, because in my opinion, like that should have been the goal to begin with, is just like try and get more eyes, because if they win, that's cool because it's like, hey, they still got it. If they lose, sure, more eyes just saw the newer players coming in that are trying to make a name for themselves that were able to take them down. So I think that's pretty cool. Like Aaron, the 80 carry who beat Double F, he's such a shit poster, man. This guy's he's just so funny. So go follow him on socials if you don't already, because man, he's funny to follow. I don't even remember what he tweeted afterwards, but it was something like, never meet your goats. Took down Double F.
Yeah. Yeah, it's tough. I mean, I know that they didn't practice a whole lot because I think they were kind of in a weird spot where, most of them have had obviously like LCS experience and whatnot, winning multiple championships and stuff. I think it's hard to find kind of like that middle ground where you're not trying to put as much time as LCS took, because LCS takes literally all of your time.
Yeah.
But you still have that like the competitor's drive or whatnot. It's like you don't want to get 4th place in amateur. That's like a pretty bad feeling, going from like, playing at Worlds and winning LCS titles to like losing to people you've never heard of before. So I'm sure that doesn't feel great for the ego, but at the same time, it's like, if you're not putting in the time, that's just how it goes. There's a reason why people practice as much as they do. It's not because it's useless. So,
and I guarantee you the guys that you're playing against are way hungrier for the win because it means so much more.
Yeah, exactly.
If they lose, who cares? But if they beat you, that's like a huge incentive. And also, they're the ones that haven't really tasted that LCS stage before. So if they can qualify, if they can get in, that's a big motivator.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll see how summer is, because I think that's obviously the one that matters more. It's like if you win summer, you can compete for the guest spot. And right now, if DSG was playing, they would, I don't know, they might not be winning too much.
Nah.
But then again,
we'll see what roster swaps they make, because they've already benched Scary Jerry and already said goodbye to Abadaga for sure. So clearly changes are being made.
Yeah, though I will say that as much as I like the idea of like relegation or whatnot, because it was fun back then seeing teams get in, this was a reality of a lot of the time the teams that got in through relegation would just go right back out the next split. It's like there is this undeniable massive gap between tier 2 and tier 1 teams. And I think the thing that I would love to see, I've mentioned this for a while, but like more matches between LCS teams and amateur teams. And I don't know how there could be some kind of like random tournament or just some kind of format that allowed these teams to play, because I think it would help both, as far as like, the tier 2 teams would get experience against the tier 1 teams. And then also it would help, say you're DSG, right? And maybe you are better than every other tier 2 team by a lot, but you're just worse than every other LCS team, so you're never winning against them. It would at least give you some way to show that you at least deserve to be there, right? It's like, we're stomping all these tier 2 teams. People will at least get to see you win sometimes. It's not like just pure losing.
It gives something for the fans of the team too, because DSG has a lot of fans. Like in the studio, there'd be people wearing DSG jerseys and hats and stuff, and I'm like, I'm sorry, man. I see you guys every week show up and you just watch your team get smashed. That's got to be tough for a fan.
Yeah, I mean, especially Disguise, because I know he's putting like a ton of money and time into this org, and I don't think he's really making much out of it.
No, nothing.
For sure, it's just a straight investment, maybe burning some money for now. But it would be nice to see them do well. Obviously, better than they did this time.
Toast, this is the deal. You can't leave until you win an LTA split. So you got to keep it going. Keep it going.
I have to start begging the banks maybe.
I actually have a thought as to how to do that, like a format, like you're talking about with this blend. Because right now there's big gaps in the schedule where teams at the bottom aren't playing, right? You know, like the teams that don't qualify for playoffs, for example, Disguise aren't going to be playing for like 2 months. Same with Lion, aren't going to be playing for 2 months. And Riot has already loosened a little bit like third-party tournaments, and there's a long-standing policy where like no third-party tournaments, like we control everything. Now they're loosening the grip a little bit. I would love it if they loosened it to the extent where somebody like a Red Bull could come in and be like, oh, we're going to host a tournament that's on like Mondays, Tuesdays, like not on the show days for the playoffs, not like going to conflict with the current Riot Games broadcast schedule, but we're going to host our own tournament where the top tier 2 teams and the teams that didn't qualify for playoffs or have gotten eliminated from playoffs now, like Dig, can now go and compete and then have our own like smaller tournament. And maybe get some creator teams in there and like invite near airport. Maybe it's an invite type of tournament, right? Where you invite the LTA teams and then in your airport and like the top tier 2s. I think stuff like that has a space, but it requires a lot of things, obviously. First off, somebody who's willing to host that tournament, put that work in. I don't know if somebody like a Red Bull would be willing to do that, but in my mind, I feel like if Riot can find a partner to do that type of thing with, that would be the solution to me, because it sucks to see a team like Disguise put so much effort in. You look at their social media and their content, you know, no shame to Cloud9 or anybody else, but like they consistently get more engagement on their posts than I see from most of the other teams in the league. And they're the bottom team. So it is because of Toast and because of his community he's built up. I would love for that community to have more reason to watch their team and cheer for the team.
Yeah, I think that'd be cool. Like bring back invitationals, that kind of stuff, because that is actually like what the whole competitive league was built on, right? There was like the TSM Invitational, those weekly tournaments. That's kind of like how LCS came around, is kind of expanding on that. So, you know, obviously LCS or LTA, whatever you want to call it, it's great.
They're gonna bleep LTA every time you say LCS. In the edit. You're fine. Yeah,
I'm never gonna stop saying it. But yeah, I think it'd be cool for more of that, like, you know, remembering your roots type stuff. And I think it's also a cool way to like expand on or try out different formats for stuff, because we have Fearless this year, which I think has been really cool.
I've loved it.
But I feel like, you know, there are other options too for different ways to like spice up the draft. I don't think Fearless is perfect by any means. I don't necessarily have solutions to anything, but obviously like I wouldn't have thought of Fearless with the old draft system. So I think there are more things you can do, right? Like there's room for creativity. And I think one of these kind of like, you know, not the most serious or like high stakes tournament, like, you know, you could put some prize money on it if there's sponsors or whatnot, but something like that I think would be a cool space for it, because it would also be a way to attract eyes if there's like, you know, some catch, you know, maybe there's some cool new format that ends up being really fun.
Give me the LPL 1v1s for side select. Something like that, right? Or game 5 blind picks, you know, like bring back these funny
anything
things.
Dude. I think there's a lot of room for just like cool stuff with League, you know, just League's a game with so many champions. There's so much to the game that I don't think we've even like scratched the surface of all the different cool ways you can play it and whatnot. So
have you been playing around in Practice Tool, by the way? Speaking of like the multiplayer Practice Tool?
I haven't done any multiplayer Practice Tool, no.
I still think that there's so much potential in that. You like League of Legends was created from Warcraft, right? I think that we're going to spawn new games from people messing around in Practice Tool. Like, it's so fun, the stuff you can do with 5v5 Practice Tool. It's ridiculous. Rafa, one of the other casters who's been on LTA and now doing like a lot of collegiate tier 2 stuff, he and I would just like mess around in there, and he's come up with like Battleship, where you like Gangplank and everybody hides, and then you have to like find people on the map by like using ults and stuff. I pitched one that we actually did with a bunch of teams, which was 0.25 speed 1v1s.
I saw that. Yeah.
So that's something that me and Rafa just found in Practice Tool, just like messing around with a bunch of stuff. And like, man, the potential with something like a tool like that, I think also could be utilized in like an actual tournament setting, because you can load 5v5 in Practice Tool and just like mess around with the settings.
Yeah. I mean, why not? I think I've always wished there was custom games in League the way there was with Warcraft 3, because like so many different games spawn from that. Just like giving these like kids or whatnot, just fans of the game, people who don't know how to code or whatnot, like a taste for making games. I'm sure so many writers got their start probably from just messing around in the Warcraft 3 like level editor.
Yeah.
I know that I spent like endless hours doing that when I was growing up.
The amount of game designers that I hear got started in like Gary's mod.
Yeah.
It's like that. Yeah, that is huge. It just sparks the creativity and be like, oh, I can do this. I can build a game. So I don't know if the client could handle it, but that'd be awesome if there's like a map editor or something like that.
Yeah, I don't know if we'll get it because, I mean, obviously the drawbacks of something like that is, what happened to Warcraft 3 where like, they have Dota and then all of a sudden like Dota turned into League and it turned into Dota 2.
Mm-hmm.
Now all of a sudden Blizzard's just like, wait, like this is from our game. Like where's our cut of all this? So I get why League hasn't done something like that, but just from the like creativity side, it's kind of a shame that there's nothing like that.
Map editor locked behind the Hall of Legends pass.
There
we go.
Perfect.
That's how Riot makes sure they're
$500 map editor. For our next segment, we have Explain This Post. So, in an interview.
Okay, here we go.
Okay,
so do you know arm wrestling, Meteos? Have you ever seen professional arm wrestling?
I've seen clips, but I don't. I've never like study it or anything like that.
This is a much more bearded version of me arm wrestling the #1 arm wrestler in North America, Devin Lorette. Or I say arm wrestling loosely. He's just having fun with me. But we're talking about his love for gaming as well because he's like an arcade gamer back in the day.
Okay.
But I'm going to assume that the post that they're talking about was when I was asked like who in the LCS scene would give me trouble on the arm wrestling table. I actually think Jack would do pretty well because like the key to being good at arm wrestling for anybody at home, first off, don't just try it casually. It is not hard to break your arms, so like take it seriously.
That's what I've wondered because I think of the stuff I've seen about arm wrestling, I've seen some crazy arm snaps.
And those are real. Like, those actually do happen. 15 pounds of force in the wrong angle will snap your arm. So don't just go out and want, arm wrestle your friends or just be, stupid about it. If you're taking it seriously and you know correct form, it's a very fun sport. But like any other sport, you got to do it correctly. But some of the keys to it is grip strength. So having strong hands, strong grip, strong forearms as well. Like, a lot of people think it's just bicep, but there's a lot of, twisting and rising motion and all this kind of, I guess, just arm tightness. I don't know how else to explain it. And whenever you look at somebody and you see big forearms, I'm like, oh, that person would probably be good at arm wrestling. I feel like Jack's got meaty forearms,
So forearms are more of an indicator than biceps, you would say?
More of an indicator than biceps. Absolutely.
Interesting.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That I feel like most people don't know that.
No, most people would not. Because a guy can have a bigger bicep than me, but if I can get my wrist above his wrist, he's not going to be able to access that power anymore. Because the way I think of arm wrestling is it's vector mathematics applied to a table with two guys holding hands. So it's like if I'm applying force in a direction, you're applying force in a direction, but then there's 3 layers to the sphere. And we have all these different angles when we factor our wrist, our forearm, and our body, because your body's pulling as well. So if I get my wrist above you, it just really gets a math equation on my side. Even if I'm the weaker bicep, again, it's mathematics.
So what are the rules for arm wrestling? Because I've seen some stuff with arm wrestling where people are out of their chair, using their entire body. Is that normal?
So most people think arm wrestling, they've only seen it in cartoons or maybe TV shows. And it's people sitting at the lunch table and going sideways.
Yeah.
First off, sideways is the danger zone. Don't go sideways when you're arm wrestling.
Okay.
It's more about a pulling towards you motion.
Okay.
So the way I always describe it is imagine you have a pocket on your shirt. That's the direction you're pulling. I'm trying to put your hand in my pocket.
Okay.
So I'm pulling you in towards me.
I see.
And when you're doing competitive arm wrestling, you're standing and you're at a table that has pads on it, and you are most tournament competitive rules allow any body movement as long as one shoulder at least stays above the table. So you can't drop below the table, but as long as my shoulder is above, I can really hinge my body and get my body into it. It's more people think that's that's cheating, but I say consider it more like wrestling, actual wrestling on a pad.
I mean, it is called wrestling.
It's more like traditional wrestling. It's just where we're making contact is only the hands.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Cool.
Fascinating sport. I love it. I
Yeah,
have a lot of fun with it.
maybe I'll learn more about it.
I'll teach you some techniques.
Okay, sounds good. Next, we've got some Q&A. First one, what was your favorite C9 League moment that you were a part of, whether it was a game, an interview, or content piece?
I think it has to be the LCS finals. C9 wins. Berserker picks up the trophy and runs around the entire arena.
That was a good one.
Was that Raleigh? I think that was in the Raleigh,
so.
North Carolina one. The reason it was special for me was a couple of reasons. One, just a beautiful moment. Like a player having that raw emotion and like just doing that felt like just incredible from a fan perspective. But also, that was my second Riot Road show because they had picked me up to do like stage hosting for finals at the road shows. And that was that one in particular felt important for me because it was the first one I felt like I actually nailed. I was like, okay, I feel good about this. As a performer, I don't know, as a player if you feel the same way. As a performer, it's very rare to leave a stage feeling good about your performance. Almost always you're going to be like, I could have done that better. Like, I messed up that. But that was one moment where I was like, it was the finals moment. I was feeling good because I was like, I think I did good this show. And then Berserker started doing that. I'm like, yeah.
That's awesome.
So that was just like a beautiful moment for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, hell yeah. I mean, C9 winning too, you know?
Yeah.
Extra points for that one. Next question is, what's one part of casting that most people don't realize is difficult?
What's one part of casting? I feel like a lot of people have answered this in the past. So I'm trying to think of like if I can come up with a more unique one. The thing that's difficult for me is the amount of information that your brain is processing all the time. Because the way I see it is that your brain's doing three things simultaneously. You are watching and interpreting the game. You are thinking about what you want to say about what's happening. And you're also actively listening to your co-caster who is saying what they think about the game. So your brain's doing three things at once. It's collecting two strings of information, and it's trying to then process what it wants to say next. And that's a lot for a human brain to handle. Some people are very good at it and naturally talented at it. I think like talent in my case, there's a certain level of talent, but that's definitely the thing that I have to work on the most. It's just like always making sure I'm in a good headspace going into a cast, because that's the hardest thing, especially as a play-by-play. In the heat of the moment, the big things happening, like there's a lot of information you're trying to gather on screen.
Play-by-play's crazy.
You have to say the correct thing. You have to say not only say the correct thing, but you have to follow the correct string of information, because like there's defaults that I'll do where, in a team fight, usually you follow the damage dealers and the engage. That's like where my brain defaults to, is like, is there an Ornn ult? Okay, that's going to be important. Is there like a Zeri popping off? That's like follow the Zeri, right? But then this is why people like Captain Flowers are the GOATs, is because not only can they do that, but they're also in their peripherals paying attention to everything else happening. So once that action ends, boom, they can snap over
Flowers
and catch this other
insane.
thing. Flowers is insane.
I've been like a guest caster with them a couple times, and just it's one thing when you're, just listening to it as a fan. It's like, it's impressive what he does, but when you're sitting there actually casting and then you're, watching the game as he does and just hearing him do his like rap god thing in real time with what's happening, it's just like, dude, what is happening?
When you actually take time to think about the technical side of what's happening, all this information's going into the brain, turning into words that make sense and are correctly interpreting what's happening. So that's definitely something that like I'm still working on and trying to improve on, and is going to be kind of like the big hurdle for me, just like brain speed. But yeah, what I always tell people that like ask questions about how to get into casting is I think it always starts with fandom. Like you have to be a fan of what you're broadcasting, because then you're going to be authentic. If you're not authentic, then people are going to see through you and not care. So start being a fan. Then you have to learn all the technique that comes along with it. So, always room for growth. So that's what we're working on right now. But I'd say that's like the hardest thing, is just amount of information that you're processing.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's so easy to get overloaded.
Mm-hmm.
Next question. If you could create your dream esports event, what would it be?
Ooh, dream esports event.
I know you're into Yu-Gi-Oh.
I am big into Yu-Gi-Oh. Yeah, I'm a big card game guy. I played multiple card games growing up, but Yu-Gi-Oh is the one that like really stuck with me. I would love to have some kind of overlap between like the League community and the Yu-Gi-Oh community, because there already is a lot of overlap. Having worked with Konami and Riot, every time I'm at a Yu-Gi-Oh show, there's people that come up to me and say, hey, like I like your LTA work. And whenever I'm at the studio, I've had people come up with Yu-Gi-Oh cards and ask me to sign them. So like there is clear overlap in the communities and the fandoms. Now I just need to start getting players. I know that some of the old Immortals guys played a lot of Yu-Gi-Oh.
Oh, really?
I never actually got to play with them, but like Castle and like Mask, like those guys guys were playing a lot of Yu-Gi-Oh.
Oh, cool.
So maybe some kind of esport event where it's like, like chess boxing.
Oh, yeah.
I think we could do like an esports Olympics type thing where it's like, okay, so you get 5v5, but they have to play a league game, and then whoever wins that gets a point. Then they have to like duel Yu-Gi-Oh. Whoever wins that gets a point. Then they have to do like Smash Bros. Whoever wins that gets a point. So we do like a gauntlet of like multiple different things, right? For each team. I think that'd be really cool.
Yeah, that sounds fun. I feel like it'd be hard to find people who know all those games, but
that's the thing, right? Because like if you're drafted a team, you could pick 5 league pros. But maybe it's a better idea to pick like 3 league pros with a Smash Pro.
Yeah.
Because you got to play that game later.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Yeah.
Next, we have a look ahead with Cloud9 Kia. Next week, we have C9 versus FlyQuest rematch, which, I think it's going to be closer than last time. Last time, it wasn't the best series ever.
Was it fastest 3-0 ever?
It was fast for sure. But no, I think that I think it'll be good because I swear every time there's like a one-sided matchup, the next time those teams play, it's just closer by default because whoever lost is way more motivated, and whoever won is, no matter how hard they fight it, they're way more complacent because they're like, it was so easy last time. So,
and I feel like we got the pendulum swing already because C9 beat FlyQuest the first time around earlier on in, was it the positioning phase or did you face off in the, I think it was the cross group phase, right? I'm trying to remember here. I think that in the cross group phase.
The cross group phase
was the
stomp,
that now,
I think.
Actually. That was the stomp, yes.
I think the positioning phase.
So it must have been the positioning phase.
One, yeah.
I remember in that, not as big of a deal for a positioning phase, but I just remember I was doing the interview, I think it was like Vulcan's birthday or something like that, and I was doing the interview, but Sven, when we were walking back, was like, thank God we beat FlyQuest, man. like it meant a lot to C9 to take down FlyQuest. And then FlyQuest able to do that to you. Now I feel like the pendulum's going to go right back and be like, nope, now y'all are motivated.
Yeah, I mean, either way, it's going to be a good game. It's always fun seeing 2 good teams play off against each other. I think my favorite thing of watching 2 good teams play is that, like, usually when you see good teams, they're winning, right? Like they're playing from ahead. But I always think you can learn the most about the game by seeing how a good team reacts to like bad game states, seeing what they do when they're behind. It's like, what are you willing to give up? What do you look for, go for? So to me, that's always like one of the most fun things to watch whenever 2 teams meet. So that'll be really cool. And then obviously the winning team qualifies for EWC.
Yeah, that's actually a pretty big prize because like I know that a lot of NA fans were annoyed that we only get the 1 seed for MSI because the team from the South Conference will also get a team since we're now 1 region here. But the EWC thing is actually pretty big because that's obviously a big financial motivator for orgs to participate in that event. Yeah. So obviously we're rooting for C9 for that one. Yeah, well, maybe the secret was that you were really getting comfortable playing from behind in the last series so that you could learn how to win when behind. Because you already know how to win when ahead. So, like, that was
C9's been doing a lot of comebacks this season.
True,
actually.
you have been, actually.
Yeah.
A lot of Nexus-based defenses.
Yep, against Lion. I think they'll be all right.
Yeah.
I'm not too worried about it.
Yeah, you beat Lion and Team Liquid that way.
Yeah.
C9's scariest at the Nexus.
True. Actually true. All right. Well, that's going to do it for this episode. Thank you for watching. And thank you again, Kangas, for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. If you have any questions, be sure to leave them down below. And we'll get to them next time.